No sympathy. King Charles has had enough. In a shocking new decree, Prince Harry is about to be stripped of everything, and it's all because of the devastating role Harry may have played in the Queen's death. For years, tensions have simmered between the royal family and Prince Harry, but now, King Charles has made a move that will change everything. With undeniable facts and an explosive constitutional break, King Charles is using his power to erase Harry from the royal bloodline entirely, removing him not just from the throne, but from the family itself. Supported by Parliament, this drastic action sends a message that Harry's actions, his devastating impact on the Queen's health, are unforgivable. How will this royal rupture unfold? And what does it mean for the future of the monarchy? Stay tuned as we reveal the shocking details. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The story of the British royal family is one that has captivated the world for centuries. Its members, often referred to as the most famous family on earth, are not just subjects of curiosity but are woven into the very fabric of history, power, and tradition. The monarchy represents an institution that commands respect, awe, and even fear. But in recent years, the facade of unity within the royal family has crumbled, revealing fractures, rivalries, and disputes that have stunned even the most seasoned royal watchers. At the heart of this turbulence is one figure, Prince Harry. Once the beloved heir to the throne, Harry has gone from being a figure of public affection to one of controversy, disdain, and even anger. His decision to step away from royal duties, to distance himself from the crown, and to speak openly about the deep-seated issues within his family set off a chain of events that would have ripple effects across the globe. But it's not just Harry's departure from the royal fold that's shaken the monarchy. His actions have sparked a political and emotional upheaval that some argue contributed to the death of his beloved grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. In this explosive video, we will explore the shocking facts that have emerged, revealing how Prince Harry's behavior in the months leading up to the Queen's passing has left a trail of destruction within the monarchy. Not only has Harry's relationship with the royal family been permanently damaged, but he now faces the ultimate punishment, a move so drastic it has never been seen in modern royal history. King Charles III, in an unprecedented constitutional break, has moved to strip Harry of his royal blood status and remove him entirely from the line of succession. This action, supported by both royal decree and parliament-backed law, represents a break from tradition that could have lasting ramifications for the monarchy's future. But why did King Charles take such drastic steps? Was it just the culmination of years of tensions, or is there more to this story? What role did Harry play in hastening the Queen's death, and how did his actions push the royal family to the edge? We'll explore all of this, diving deep into the events that have led to this moment of ultimate family betrayal and political maneuvering. The stakes have never been higher. For the first time in history, a member of the royal family faces the complete loss of their royal identity. The very title that has been passed down through generations is now being revoked, and with it, a lifelong status that has defined Harry's existence. But is this a punishment he deserves? Or is this a royal vendetta, an effort to secure power and control over the monarchy's future? The questions surrounding Harry's role in the royal family's tumultuous times are numerous. How did his explosive memoir, Spare, which gave intimate details of family struggles, fuel the fire of resentment? How did his very public battles with the media and his outspoken criticism of royal practices contribute to the fractures within the family? And perhaps most importantly, how did the emotional toll of these events affect Queen Elizabeth II, whose death many believe was hastened by the intense strain placed on her by her own family members? This is a story of power, betrayal, and a family on the brink of collapse. As we break down the explosive facts and look at the legal and emotional consequences of King Charles's decision, we'll explore how this moment marks the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for the monarchy. A chapter where Harry, once seen as a symbol of the royal family's future, is now left with nothing. A chapter where the monarchy must decide what it stands for and who it is willing to protect. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the shocking truth behind Harry's fall from grace and what King Charles's unprecedented action means for the future of the royal family. Stay tuned as we reveal the explosive details that have set the monarchy on a collision course with its own history. But before we dive deeper into the royal decrees and the shocking facts, let's take a moment to reflect on the man at the center of this controversy, Prince Harry. How did he go from being the golden child of the royal family to the subject of such animosity? And what does this mean for his future and the future of the monarchy? Prince Harry, once known for his cheeky grin and carefree spirit, has transformed into a figure caught in a web of scandal, personal revelations, and royal discord. His decision to step away from royal duties, along with Meghan Markle, was seen by some as a courageous move toward personal freedom. Yet for others, it was the ultimate betrayal. Harry's decision to prioritize his own happiness over his royal duties created a seismic shift in how the public perceived him. But was this simply the beginning of a much larger issue that would eventually lead to the destruction of his relationship with the royal family? In the months leading up to the Queen's death, Harry's actions became increasingly erratic, drawing the ire of both his family and the public. His bombshell interviews, his outspoken criticism of the monarchy, and his seemingly constant media deals painted a picture of a man who was not just stepping away from the royal spotlight, but actively waging war against it. Each new revelation, each new interview, seemed to pour more fuel on the fire of royal discontent. But it wasn't just Harry's media blitz that caused a stir. Behind closed doors, family members were growing increasingly frustrated with his behavior. Tensions had been building for years, particularly after the infamous Oprah interview, where Harry and Meghan publicly aired their grievances against the monarchy. The Queen, who had always been a figure of strength and stability, found herself caught between her love for her grandson and her commitment to the monarchy. It is said that in the final months of her life, the Queen was emotionally strained, dealing with not only the pressures of leading the nation, but also the fallout from Harry's actions. Some insiders claim that the Queen's health deteriorated quicker due to the stress of watching her family unravel. Could it be that the public spectacle created by Harry's very public battles with the monarchy played a significant role in her decline? The facts are still being examined, but the emotional toll on the Queen was undeniable. When King Charles ascended to the throne, he faced a monarchy that had already been rocked by scandal and internal turmoil. The decision to remove Harry from the line of succession wasn't made lightly. It was a drastic measure, one that would forever alter the structure of the royal family. But was it the right decision? Was it necessary to safeguard the integrity of the crown? And how did Harry's behavior in the months leading up to the Queen's death contribute to Charles's eventual decree? As we dig deeper into these questions, we will uncover the shocking details behind King Charles's decision and the incredible legal and emotional ramifications of this unprecedented royal action. Stay with us as we explore how Prince Harry, the man once positioned to carry the royal legacy forward, is now left with nothing, and how the monarchy, in a bold and historic move, has effectively erased him from its future. The British royal family has long been an institution synonymous with stability, tradition, and, above all, secrecy. For centuries, the monarchy has remained largely untouchable. Its members revered, their actions scrutinized, but ultimately their lives protected by the thick walls of royal protocol and an unwavering public facade. However, behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace, there exists a far less harmonious reality, a world where power struggles, personal conflicts, and deep-seated rivalries often boil just beneath the surface, waiting for an opportunity to explode. The royal family is a machine, a carefully constructed dynasty built on centuries of tradition and bloodlines. Every action, every word, every decision is heavily scrutinized not only by the public but by the press and, most importantly, by the royal family itself. In this world, maintaining unity is paramount, and deviation from that unity can have disastrous consequences. Yet, it was Prince Harry, once considered the charming, mischievous younger son of Princess Diana and Prince Charles, who would become the symbol of the royal family's most public and irreparable fracture. His actions over the past few years have torn the monarchy apart, exposing long-held grievances and raw emotions that have been simmering for decades. The fall from grace that Prince Harry has experienced is not simply the result of a single misstep, but the culmination of years of tension, misunderstanding, and growing disillusionment. Harry's path has always been a complicated one. As the second son of Prince Charles, he was never expected to take the throne. His role within the royal family was defined not by responsibility, but by the freedom afforded to him as the spare. In many ways, Harry enjoyed the best of both worlds. He could fulfill his royal duties while also maintaining a degree of independence from the pressures placed on his older brother, Prince William, who was destined to be king. But it was this very freedom that eventually led to his undoing. For much of his life, Harry's relationship with the press was fraught. The paparazzi, ever eager to capture the slightest moment of vulnerability, followed his every move. The tabloids painted him as the wild card of the royal family, someone whose antics, though often harmless, sometimes bordered on reckless. Whether it was his infamous party-loving days in his youth or his controversial behavior as an adult, Harry's reputation as the rebellious prince became well known. Yet, for a long time, this behavior was tolerated, even seen as endearing. Harry was the fun prince, the one who brought a certain youthful energy to the family. But as time went on, Harry's relationship with the royal family grew more strained. The events leading to his marriage to Meghan Markle only served to intensify these tensions. Meghan, an American actress with no prior royal connections, was not the typical choice for a member of the royal family. Her background, coupled with her outspoken nature, set the stage for a collision between two worlds. One of ancient tradition and one of modernity, celebrity, and activism. The union between Harry and Meghan was both a source of excitement and, for many, deep concern. When the couple's relationship became public, it was clear that Harry was no longer content to remain within the confines of his royal duties. He and Meghan were outspoken about their desire for a more independent life, one where they could pursue their charitable causes and live on their terms. This desire for autonomy was seen by some as a rejection of the royal family's core principles of duty and service. For others, it was a natural evolution, a sign that the monarchy needed to modernize in order to remain relevant. But it was their decision to step away from royal duties in 2020 that marked the point of no return. The Megxit scandal sent shockwaves through the royal family. The public nature of their departure, along with their subsequent interviews and media deals, made it clear that Harry and Meghan were no longer interested in maintaining the carefully controlled image of the royal family. Instead, they sought to carve out their own identity, one that was not tethered to the crown. This decision didn't just affect Harry and Meghan, it sent ripples through the entire family. Prince William, the heir to the throne, was particularly hurt by Harry's actions. The brothers, once close, became estranged, with their relationship growing increasingly distant. The royal family's image was further tarnished, with critics accusing Harry and Meghan of selfishness and betrayal. The public and media scrutiny reached a fever pitch, with every move the couple made being dissected and analyzed for signs of royal disrespect. But even amid the growing tension, no one could have predicted the full extent of the fallout. As Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family became more strained, a deeper, more personal rift began to develop, one that would ultimately lead to Harry's complete separation from the monarchy. The final blow came in the form of a documentary, a memoir, and a series of interviews, in which Harry and Meghan spoke candidly about their experiences with the royal family. They accused the monarchy of being cold, distant, and even racist. These revelations, particularly those made in the couple's interview with Oprah Winfrey, were seen by many as a direct attack on the institution that had, for centuries, been a symbol of unity and tradition. For King Charles, the fallout from these revelations was nothing short of catastrophic. As the new monarch, he was faced with a delicate balancing act: how to protect the reputation of the crown while also managing the growing division within his own family. The stress of his ascension to the throne, combined with the ongoing drama surrounding his son, was overwhelming. Charles had always been a deeply private man, known for his introspective nature, but now he was thrust into the public eye in a way he had never anticipated. Harry's actions, particularly his continued public statements about the royal family, created an untenable situation for the monarchy. As the Queen's health began to decline, Charles found himself not only dealing with the personal grief of losing his mother, but also managing a family on the brink of collapse. The pressure to maintain the monarchy's reputation became all-consuming. Charles, who had always believed in the sanctity of royal tradition, was now forced to make decisions that would challenge the very foundation of the institution. Harry's presence, or rather his absence, became a key issue. The royal family's public image had suffered greatly, and many felt that the monarchy's future was at risk if the rift between Harry and the family was not addressed. The Queen, despite her love for Harry, found herself increasingly isolated in her later years, unable to heal the wounds that had formed between her family members. And as Harry continued his media campaign, offering more personal insights into the inner workings of the royal family, the pressure on Charles to act became unbearable. By the time the Queen passed away, the royal family was already on the edge of collapse. The dynamics had shifted irrevocably, and Charles knew that the monarchy could not survive if these divisions were allowed to continue unchecked. It was clear that Harry's actions had played a significant role in the royal family's struggles. His decision to step away from his royal duties and his ongoing public attacks on the institution had created a situation that no longer felt sustainable. In the aftermath of the Queen's death, Charles made the fateful decision to take control of the situation once and for all. He could no longer afford to allow Harry's actions to undermine the monarchy. The public perception of the royal family had already been tarnished, and Charles knew that in order to protect the future of the monarchy, drastic measures would have to be taken. The British royal family has always been a symbol of strength and stability, with Queen Elizabeth II serving as the bedrock of that institution for over 70 years. Throughout her reign, she was the epitome of grace under pressure, navigating both personal and political crises with a stoic resolve that endeared her to people across the globe. However, as she aged, the weight of the monarchy became more apparent, and the personal challenges that arose within her family began to take a toll on her health. In the final years of Queen Elizabeth's life, her health became a growing concern. While the world watched as the Queen gracefully continued her royal duties, the pressure behind the scenes was mounting. As the longest reigning monarch in British history, she had lived through more than most could ever imagine: world wars, revolutions, personal tragedies, and, of course, the evolving challenges within her own family. But in the last few years of her life, it became evident that the challenges she faced within her family would prove to be more emotionally taxing than any other. It is well documented that the Queen had always been particularly close to her family, despite the constraints of royal duty. Her children, particularly Prince Charles, had always been a source of comfort to her. But over the years, cracks began to form in her relationship with certain family members. Most notably, Prince Harry, her grandson, who had been a source of joy for the Queen in his younger years, was increasingly becoming a figure of turmoil within the royal fold. His actions, ranging from his controversial marriage to Meghan Markle, his public criticisms of the monarchy, and his decision to step away from royal duties, were not only a personal affront to the royal family, but also a source of profound distress for the Queen. The Queen, who had devoted her life to the service of her country and her family, found herself caught between her love for her grandson and the weight of the monarchy. As Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family deteriorated, the Queen found herself increasingly isolated in her role. While Harry's decision to publicly criticize the monarchy and its inner workings was seen by many as an attack on the very institution the Queen had worked tirelessly to uphold, it was also a deeply emotional blow to a woman who had spent her life maintaining unity within the royal family. The Queen's health had always been a matter of concern for the royal family. She had lived through a tumultuous reign, and as she aged, the demands of her role began to take a physical toll. In the months leading up to her death, it became clear that her health was declining rapidly. But was there more to her decline than simply the physical effects of age? The stress caused by the ongoing public feud within her family, particularly with Harry, seems to have had a significant impact on her mental and emotional well-being. Royal insiders have long speculated that the Queen's relationship with Harry played a crucial role in her declining health. According to sources close to the monarch, the emotional strain of dealing with her grandson's actions was taking a visible toll on her. The constant media attention surrounding Harry and Meghan, combined with their very public departure from royal duties, placed an enormous amount of pressure on the Queen to maintain the monarchy's image. But beyond the public-facing duties, it was the personal impact that Harry's actions had on her that proved to. The Queen's devotion to her family was well known, and her bond with Harry was special. However, the growing rift between Harry and the rest of the family left the Queen in a difficult position. She was unable to resolve the conflict between her grandson and the rest of her children, particularly Prince Charles and Prince William. Harry's departure from royal duties and his continued media campaigns against the monarchy created a sense of isolation within the royal family, with the Queen left in the middle, unable to bridge the gap. In the months leading up to her death, sources claim that the Queen was increasingly withdrawn and exhausted. Her public appearances became fewer and farther between, and her once vibrant demeanor seemed to fade. Her health, once robust, began to show signs of serious decline. According to royal experts, it wasn't just physical illness that was affecting her. There was a deep emotional exhaustion that stemmed from her family's ongoing turmoil. As Queen Elizabeth struggled to cope with the emotional strain, her physical health also worsened. Her declining mobility and frailty were a direct result of the stress she had been under, as well as the emotional toll of dealing with the family drama. Her relationship with Harry, which had once been one of great affection, became a source of painful regret. The Queen's own public statements reflected this sense of sadness, as she was forced to navigate the difficult task of supporting her grandson while also protecting the monarchy. But what did Harry's actions mean for the Queen's health? It's no secret that emotional stress can have a profound effect on a person's physical well-being, particularly as they age. Many experts believe that the Queen's declining health was not just the result of natural aging, but was exacerbated by the constant turmoil within her family. As Harry's public battle with the monarchy continued, the Queen's emotional burden became too great. The stress of having to balance her love for Harry with her duty to the crown was, according to some sources, a contributing factor in her final decline. The question on many people's minds is, did Harry's behavior contribute to the Queen's death? While no one can say for certain, it's clear that the emotional strain placed on the Queen by her grandson's actions was significant. Her health, which had been relatively stable for much of her reign, began to deteriorate rapidly in the months leading up to her passing. Her public appearances became increasingly rare, and those who saw her privately noted her frailty and exhaustion. Some royal experts believe that the stress of Harry's departure from royal life and his ongoing media interviews may have played a direct role in hastening the Queen's decline. The public nature of Harry's disputes with his family, particularly with Prince Charles and Prince William, created a storm of negative press that followed the Queen wherever she went. As the figurehead of the royal family, the Queen felt a deep responsibility to uphold the monarchy's reputation, and the constant strain of dealing with Harry's public revelations only added to the pressure she was under. Moreover, the Queen's emotional attachment to Harry made the situation even more difficult. She was deeply saddened by the way her grandson was distancing himself from the family, and many believe that this emotional burden played a significant role in her declining health. It's been suggested that the Queen felt torn between her love for Harry and her duty to the monarchy, leading to feelings of frustration and sadness that likely contributed to her physical decline. But Harry's actions didn't just affect the Queen. His strained relationship with his father, Prince Charles, and his brother, Prince William, also played a role in the family's overall emotional state. As tensions between Harry and the rest of the family grew, the weight of these unresolved conflicts fell heavily on the Queen, who was forced to carry the burden of trying to maintain the unity of the monarchy. The constant emotional strain from within her own family was, according to some sources, a major factor in her declining health in her final months. In the aftermath of the Queen's death, it became evident that Harry's role in the royal family's turmoil was far more significant than anyone had realized. His actions, his departure from royal life, his media campaigns, and his ongoing public feuds with family members were not just a personal betrayal but a factor in the broader collapse of the royal family's unity. The monarchy has long been governed by tradition and a strict adherence to a hierarchy that dictates not only who holds power, but also who has the right to wield it. For centuries, the royal bloodline has been the backbone of the British monarchy, passed down through generations with great care and ceremonial significance. The line of succession is sacred, an unbroken chain that has been maintained for over 1,000 years. However, the events leading up to the final days of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, and the controversies surrounding her grandson, Prince Harry, have forced the royal family to reconsider what it means to belong to the royal bloodline. In the wake of the Queen's death, King Charles III faced an unprecedented challenge. The monarchy, for all its grandeur and tradition, was now threatened by the very actions of its own members. Prince Harry's decision to distance himself from royal duties, his explosive memoir, and his ongoing feud with the royal family had left a lasting mark on the monarchy's image. But it was his public criticism of the institution, his departure from royal life, and the media frenzy that followed that ultimately forced King Charles to make a decision that would alter the course of the monarchy forever. The concept of stripping a royal member of their blood status was, until now, unthinkable. The monarchy, after all, is built on a foundation of lineage and tradition. To remove someone from the royal bloodline would be tantamount to erasing their very existence within the family, a move that would have far-reaching implications for the future of the monarchy itself. Yet, as tensions mounted and the pressure to preserve the integrity of the crown grew, King Charles found himself backed into a corner. In a historic and deeply controversial move, King Charles announced his decision to strip Prince Harry of his royal blood status. This action was not taken lightly, and it was clear that the decision was driven by a combination of personal frustration and the need to protect the future of the monarchy. It was a move that sent shockwaves through the royal family, the media, and the public. But what led to this drastic action, and what does it mean for Prince Harry's future? At the heart of King Charles's decision was the concept of duty. The monarchy has always been an institution built on duty and service to the country, and in King Charles's eyes, Prince Harry had not only failed in that duty but had actively undermined it. Harry's decision to step away from royal duties, his public criticisms of the monarchy, and his increasingly combative stance against the very institution he was born into had created a situation where Charles felt he had no choice but to take drastic action. Harry's departure from royal life in 2020, along with his subsequent media deals and outspoken interviews, had left the monarchy in disarray. The royal family, which had once prided itself on maintaining a unified front, was now divided in ways that seemed irreparable. Prince Harry, once considered the charming and charismatic younger son of Prince Charles, had become a divisive figure, someone whose actions, both private and public, were at odds with the royal family's core values. His decision to speak out against the monarchy, to air its dirty laundry in public, and to distance himself from the royal fold had created a rift that no amount of reconciliation seemed able to heal. King Charles, who had long been a supporter of his son, found himself in a position where he could no longer ignore the damage Harry's actions were causing to the royal family. The Queen, though deeply saddened by the estrangement from her grandson, had always maintained a sense of duty to the monarchy. Charles, however, was now king, and his primary responsibility was to safeguard the future of the crown. The monarchy's survival depended on maintaining its image, and Harry's actions had threatened to undermine that image in ways that could not be ignored. As King Charles considered his options, he faced a dilemma that no previous monarch had ever encountered. How could he protect the monarchy's reputation while also maintaining his relationship with his son? The decision to strip Harry of his royal blood status was not a decision made lightly. It was a drastic move, one that would have lasting consequences not just for Harry, but for the royal family as a whole. In the days leading up to his announcement, Charles consulted with advisors, legal experts, and even members of the royal family. The decision was not made in isolation, and it was clear that Charles had considered the potential fallout from such a move. But the stakes were high, and the pressure to act decisively was immense. As the new king, Charles knew that his reign would be judged not only by his ability to lead the country, but by his ability to maintain the monarchy's integrity. And that integrity was now under threat from within. On the day of the announcement, Charles made his decision public. The royal family, for the first time in history, would remove a member from the line of succession. Prince Harry, who had once been in line to inherit the throne, would no longer be considered part of the royal bloodline. The decision was final and irreversible. The public's reaction to the news was swift and intense. For many, it was a shocking move, one that seemed to go against the very principles of the monarchy. How could a family so dedicated to the idea of bloodline and tradition take such a drastic step? But for others, the decision was long overdue. Harry's actions, they argued, had done irreparable damage to the monarchy. He had turned his back on his family and his royal duties, choosing instead to pursue his own interests at the expense of the institution he was born into. In their eyes, Charles's decision was an act of courage, one that would preserve the monarchy for future generations. For Harry, the decision was a devastating blow. He had spent his entire life as a member of the royal family, and now he was being stripped of that identity. The loss was not just symbolic, it was personal. Harry's relationship with his family had always been complicated, but this move severed the final ties that bound him to the royal fold. It was a public humiliation that would haunt him for the rest of his life. In the days that followed the announcement, Harry remained silent. The media waited with bated breath for his response, but none came. It was clear that Harry had been caught off guard by the severity of Charles's decision. The once reluctant royal was now left to grapple with the reality of his situation. He had lost everything that had defined him: his titles, his status, his place in history. But what does this mean for the future of the monarchy? King Charles's decision to strip Harry of his royal blood status marks the beginning of a new chapter for the royal family. It is a chapter defined not by tradition, but by the need for survival. The monarchy, long viewed as an institution impervious to change, now faces an uncertain future. The royal family's image has been irrevocably altered, and King Charles's actions have sent a clear message: there is no room for dissent within the royal fold. The media has always played a crucial role in shaping public perception of the royal family. From the earliest days of the monarchy, when newspapers first began to publish stories about the personal lives of royals, to the modern age of tabloids and digital news outlets, the press has been both a boon and a burden for the crown. The relationship between the media and the royal family is complicated, one built on mutual dependency, yet often marked by a deep-seated mistrust. The royal family needs the media to maintain its public image, while the media, in turn, feeds off the public's insatiable curiosity about the lives of the world's most famous family. However, this relationship has, at times, proven to be a double-edged sword. For Prince Harry, the media's role in his downfall cannot be overstated. His relationship with the press has been fraught with conflict from the very beginning. As a young royal, Harry was often painted as the wild child of the royal family, a prince who, despite his public duties, could not seem to avoid the relentless scrutiny of the press. His youthful indiscretions, such as partying in Las Vegas or wearing a Nazi uniform to a costume party, were splashed across the front pages of tabloids, turning him into a scandalous figure in the eyes of the public. But despite the negative attention, Harry seemed to brush it off, laughing it off as part of the price of fame. However, it was when Harry met Meghan Markle that the real media frenzy began. Meghan, an American actress and activist, was an outsider to the royal family. Her background, her race, and her outspoken views on social issues made her a polarizing figure, both within the royal family and in the media. The press, which had long been fascinated by the British royal family, now had a new target in Meghan. The media's portrayal of her was, at times, harsh and unforgiving. She was criticized for everything from her clothing choices to her perceived inability to adapt to royal protocol. But it wasn't just Meghan who was targeted. The media quickly turned its attention to Harry as well, accusing him of being weak and too influenced by his wife. The press painted Harry as a prince who had abandoned his royal duties for the sake of his wife and his own happiness. He was described as selfish, reckless, and, at times, even ungrateful. His decision to step back from royal duties in 2020, alongside Meghan, was seen as a direct challenge to the monarchy's long-standing traditions. The media seized on this, framing the couple's decision as a betrayal of their royal roles. Headlines like "Harry and Meghan betray the Queen" and "Royal rebels reject duty" dominated the tabloids. For Harry, it was as if the media had already convicted him before he had the chance to explain himself. The media's treatment of Meghan and Harry took on a decidedly racial undertone, with the couple facing accusations of hypocrisy while living in luxury. Meghan, in particular, was frequently portrayed as the out-of-touch royal, accused of being overly political and self-absorbed. The relentless press attacks were a source of immense stress for both Harry and Meghan. The couple had hoped that their decision to step away from royal duties would allow them to live a more private life, but the media had no intention of letting them escape. For Harry, the media's role in his downfall became all too clear. In interviews, he spoke openly about the toll that the press had taken on his mental health, particularly in the wake of Meghan's miscarriage and the couple's battles with the press over their privacy. He revealed that he had been haunted by the tragic death of his mother, Princess Diana, who was killed in a car crash while being pursued by paparazzi. Harry has long struggled with the trauma of losing his mother at such a young age, and the media's constant attention only deepened that pain. His decision to step away from royal life, he explained, was partly motivated by a desire to protect his family from the same level of scrutiny that had led to Diana's tragic death. Despite the couple's desire for privacy, the media's obsession with them only intensified. In the years that followed their departure from royal duties, Harry and Meghan continued to make headlines. From their Netflix deals to their interviews with Oprah Winfrey, the couple became global symbols of celebrity and royal rebellion. Every move they made was watched, analyzed, and scrutinized. The media painted them as both victims and villains, sympathetic figures fighting against the monarchy's antiquated rules, yet also selfish individuals who refused to abide by the royal family's expectations. It wasn't just the tabloids that were fixated on Harry and Meghan. The mainstream media also took notice. Major news outlets across the world covered the couple's every move, from their philanthropic endeavors to their personal struggles. Interviews with Harry and Meghan were highly anticipated, with millions tuning in to hear their side of the story. The couple, in turn, used these platforms to air their grievances against the royal family. Meghan, in particular, spoke out about the racism and isolation she felt as a member of the royal family, while Harry opened up about his strained relationship with his father, Prince Charles, and his brother, Prince William. The media, ever eager for drama and controversy, seized on every word. Headlines declared the royal family in crisis, with rumors of infighting and betrayal swirling around the palace. Harry and Meghan's decision to speak out was seen as a direct attack on the monarchy, and the royal family's image, once so carefully crafted, began to unravel. In many ways, the media served as the battleground for the war between Harry and the royal family. Every media appearance, every public statement, became ammunition in a battle that threatened to tear the monarchy apart. As Harry's relationship with his family deteriorated, the media continued to fuel the fire. The press painted Harry as a traitor, a prince who had turned his back on the family that had given him everything. His decision to step away from royal duties was framed as a rejection of his heritage, an abandonment of the monarchy that had defined his life. But while the media continued to vilify Harry, there were others who saw him as a victim of circumstance. They pointed to the intense pressure placed on him by the royal family and the media's constant scrutiny as the factors that pushed him to the brink. In the eyes of many, Harry's actions were a response to the emotional and psychological toll that life in the royal family had taken on him. The media, however, refused to see it that way. For them, Harry was a story that they could sell, a story that would keep their readers and viewers hooked. And so, the royal war continued, with the media acting as both the instigator and the referee. The media's role in Harry's downfall is undeniable. While Harry and Meghan sought to distance themselves from the monarchy and the press, they found that the media was always one step ahead, ready to pounce on any misstep, any slip of the tongue, any moment of vulnerability. And so, the royal family became not just a subject of public interest, but a spectacle, one that played out in real time, with each new revelation adding fuel to the fire. But as the media continued to exploit the drama, they also began to question their own role in this story. Had they gone too far? Had they pushed too hard in their quest for royal revelations? For many, the answer was clear. The media had crossed a line. And for Prince Harry, the constant press attacks, the media frenzy, and the relentless scrutiny had become too much to bear. The British royal family has always been a subject of intense public scrutiny. With every move the royal family makes, the media is there to dissect it, the public to judge it. For decades, the monarchy has maintained its place in the hearts of the British people, even in times of scandal, tragedy, and controversy. However, the announcement by King Charles III to strip his son, Prince Harry, of his royal blood status was a decision that reverberated far beyond the confines of Buckingham Palace. It was a move that would be scrutinized, debated, and ultimately leave the monarchy's future in question. The public's reaction to this shocking decision was as divided as the royal family itself. For some, King Charles had done what was necessary to preserve the monarchy's image. The royal family, they argued, had to be protected from any member who refused to adhere to the principles that had sustained it for centuries. For others, however, it was an unforgivable betrayal. Stripping Harry of his royal status was seen by many as an unjust punishment, a move motivated by personal animosity rather than a desire to protect the institution. The first wave of reactions came from royal supporters and staunch defenders of the monarchy. They argued that King Charles had no choice but to act decisively. The royal family's image had been tarnished by Harry's departure from royal duties, his media dealings, and his public criticisms of the monarchy. In their eyes, this was not a punishment, but rather a necessary step to protect the future of the crown. Many saw Harry's actions as a direct challenge to the very foundation of the monarchy. By stepping away from his duties, criticizing the family in interviews, and writing his controversial memoir, Harry had crossed a line. For them, King Charles's decision was a bold statement that no one was above the monarchy, not even family. Harry has clearly shown that he does not value his royal heritage or the responsibilities that come with it, one royal commentator remarked. His actions have been harmful to the monarchy, and it was inevitable that something had to be done. Charles is a king, and as king, he must ensure that the monarchy remains strong and respected, and that means taking drastic action against those who seek to tear it down. Supporters of the monarchy also pointed to the example set by Prince William, who had steadfastly adhered to his royal duties despite the personal toll it took. William's unwavering commitment to the crown was seen as the ideal for any future monarch. In contrast, Harry's public rejection of those duties, in their view, represented a betrayal not just of his family but of the nation he was meant to serve. Meanwhile, royal insiders were quick to back King Charles's decision. One source close to the family stated, "The king has always been committed to the royal legacy. He's had to make a difficult but necessary decision, one that will safeguard the monarchy's future." The constant media attention and Harry's willingness to air his grievances publicly left Charles with little choice. The monarchy cannot survive on emotions. It survives on duty, service, and tradition. The royal family's supporters, especially those who had stood by the Queen throughout her reign, found themselves rallying around King Charles. For them, this was a moment of leadership, a moment where the king was forced to take control of a situation that had spiraled out of hand. The royal family, they argued, needed to move forward, and that meant putting the past behind them. Harry's departure had disrupted the monarchy's delicate balance, and now, Charles had to reassert control. But not everyone agreed. As news of King Charles's decision spread, a significant portion of the public voiced their disapproval. Many felt that the punishment was too harsh, a betrayal of the family bonds that the royal family had long claimed to uphold. To strip a family member of their royal status, especially one who had once been so beloved by the public, was seen by some as a step too far. Critics of the decision argued that Harry's actions, while controversial, did not warrant such a severe punishment. "Harry is a human being," one royal fan wrote in a letter to a major British newspaper. "He's made mistakes, sure, but he's still part of the family. He shouldn't be cast out just because he wanted a different life." The royal family has always been about unity, about staying together in times of trouble. This decision goes against everything the monarchy should stand for. Many of those who supported Harry and Meghan in their desire to step away from royal duties echoed similar sentiments. They saw the king's decision as an act of revenge, a punishment for Harry's refusal to remain silent and to conform to the monarchy's outdated traditions. The narrative of Harry and Meghan as victims of a royal system that stifled their freedom and individuality had taken hold in many circles, and for these people, the king's decision was seen as an attempt to silence them for good. One social media user expressed the general frustration felt by many Harry supporters. "Harry spoke out against an institution that has caused so much pain and suffering for him and his family. Is this really the best way to show that the monarchy has learned from its mistakes?" Stripping him of his titles and royal status is just another example of the palace refusing to adapt to the modern world. Even prominent public figures weighed in on the controversy. Some political leaders and public personalities voiced their opposition to the decision. A former British MP who had worked closely with the royal family in the past said, "The monarchy is an institution that needs to evolve." By taking such drastic steps against his own son, King Charles risks alienating an entire generation of young people who already view the monarchy as outdated and irrelevant. It's a short-sighted move that could have long-lasting consequences. Harry's supporters also rallied around him, calling for greater empathy and understanding for the challenges he and Meghan had faced. Many pointed to the couple's mental health struggles, their desire to live independently, and the relentless press coverage they had endured as reasons why Harry's relationship with the monarchy had deteriorated. To them, King Charles's decision was not just a blow to Harry, but to the idea of compassion and family unity that they believed the monarchy should represent. The public reaction was also shaped by the ever-present role of the media. As the story unfolded, the media became a battleground for public opinion. In the days following King Charles's announcement, tabloid headlines and news stories were filled with speculation about the true motives behind the decision. Some outlets painted Harry as a victim of a cruel and authoritarian monarchy, while others lauded Charles for finally taking a stand against his son's behavior. The public was left to navigate the conflicting narratives, trying to make sense of what had truly happened behind closed doors. In the royal family's inner circle, however, there was little room for doubt. For those who believed in the monarchy's traditions, King Charles had made the right choice. His decision, while painful, was necessary to preserve the monarchy's legitimacy and unity. For them, the public's outrage was merely a temporary reaction, one that would fade in time as the monarchy moved forward and regained its footing. But for Prince Harry, the impact of the decision was immediate and profound. His royal status had been stripped from him, and with it, his place in history seemed to vanish. The man who had once been a beloved royal figure was now a symbol of the monarchy's willingness to do whatever it took to maintain its power. The road ahead for Harry, once full of possibilities, now seemed uncertain and fraught with challenges. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made the decision to step away from royal duties in 2020, it was seen by many as an act of defiance, but also a desire for independence. The couple sought to build a life for themselves outside the constraints of the royal family, away from the relentless public scrutiny that had followed them throughout their lives. The move, dubbed Megxit by the media, was unprecedented. No other royal in modern history had voluntarily chosen to relinquish their royal duties. At the time, the couple was hailed by some as brave for seeking to forge their own path, while others viewed their actions as a betrayal of the monarchy. Harry and Meghan's decision to step back from their royal roles was framed as an attempt to live a more private, meaningful life. However, it quickly became apparent that their desire for privacy came at a high cost, as their departure from royal life sparked intense public debate. In the years following their decision to leave, Harry and Meghan sought to establish themselves as global figures, using their platform to promote causes close to their hearts, including mental health, social justice, and environmental sustainability. They signed lucrative deals with Netflix and Spotify, securing multi-million-dollar contracts for content creation. Yet, as their celebrity status grew, so did the media's scrutiny, and the couple's relationship with the royal family deteriorated further. For Harry, the decision to step away from royal duties was not an easy one. He had always been close to his family, especially to his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, and the prospect of cutting ties with the monarchy was deeply emotional. In interviews, Harry has explained how the pressure of royal life, combined with the constant media intrusion and the tragic loss of his mother, Princess Diana, made it increasingly difficult for him to continue within the royal fold. The desire to protect his own mental health, and that of his wife, Meghan, was central to his decision to distance himself from the royal family. But as time passed, the couple's relationship with the British public became more and more strained. The royal family's supporters were divided over whether Harry and Meghan's decision was justified, and many felt that they had abandoned their royal duties in favor of personal gain. Some argued that Harry and Meghan's media deals and public statements were at odds with the idea of serving the public and maintaining the dignity of the monarchy. Others saw the couple as victims of an outdated institution that failed to adapt to modern realities. As the public fallout continued, Harry and Meghan's legacy began to take shape. They became symbols of rebellion against an institution that they felt was too stifling, too steeped in tradition, and too resistant to change. But the couple's willingness to speak out, to criticize the royal family publicly, and to use their platform to challenge the monarchy also painted them as figures of controversy. The media's portrayal of them was polarized. On one hand, they were seen as brave crusaders fighting for a better future. On the other, they were accused of tarnishing the royal family's legacy and damaging its reputation. The interview with Oprah Winfrey in 2021 marked a turning point in their public image. The couple revealed intimate details of their time within the royal family, including accusations of racism within the institution, Meghan's struggles with mental health, and the challenges they faced in trying to find their place in a system that seemed unwilling to accommodate them. The revelations sent shockwaves through the media and the public, and the royal family was forced to respond. For many, the interview was a painful and raw look at the inner workings of the monarchy, but it also solidified Harry and Meghan's status as two of the most talked-about figures in the world. Despite the public outcry, Harry and Meghan's popularity continued to grow, especially in the United States, where they became influential figures in the worlds of activism and celebrity. They used their platform to address issues such as racial inequality, mental health, and the environment. However, with every new appearance, every new interview, and every new project, the rift between them and the royal family widened. The couple's outspoken criticism of the monarchy and their decision to go public with personal grievances alienated them further from their relatives. For Harry, the personal toll of this public fallout was immense. As he watched his relationship with his family deteriorate, he also had to come to terms with the fact that his actions had consequences. The once promising future he had within the royal family now seemed like a distant memory. His father, Prince Charles, and his brother, Prince William, had become distant figures, and the bond that had once united the royal family was now frayed beyond repair. The emotional cost of this rift was evident in Harry's public statements. where he spoke about the pain he felt in losing the support of his family and the difficult choices he had to make in order to protect his own mental health and the well-being of his family. But perhaps the most profound impact of Harry and Meghan's decision to leave the royal family was the toll it took on their legacy. The couple had once been seen as two of the most popular members of the royal family. They were beloved for their charity work, their charm, and their youthfulness. But now, they were seen by many as symbols of royal rebellion, figures who had rejected their heritage and their royal duties in favor of personal ambition. Their legacy was now defined not by their royal status, but by their willingness to speak out against the institution that had shaped their lives. For some, this made them heroes, figures who had broken free from the constraints of tradition to create a new path. For others, they were traitors, members of the royal family who had dishonored their bloodline and tarnished the reputation of the monarchy. The decision to strip Harry of his royal blood status was, in many ways, the culmination of this shift in legacy. Once a beloved member of the royal family, Harry was now reduced to a symbol of defiance, a man who had rejected the very institution that had given him his title. His legacy, like that of Meghan, would be forever linked to their decision to challenge the monarchy and seek a life outside its constraints. For Meghan, the legacy was similarly complicated. As a woman of mixed race, she had been hailed as a trailblazer, someone who brought diversity and inclusivity to the royal family. But her outspoken nature and her willingness to challenge the institution led to her being vilified in some quarters, while others hailed her as a feminist icon and a symbol of empowerment. Her legacy, like Harry's, was one of both praise and criticism, a complex tapestry of personal triumphs and public struggles. As the dust settled in the aftermath of King Charles's decision, it became clear that the legacy of Harry and Meghan would never be simple. It would never be defined by their royal titles or their service to the crown. Instead, their legacy would be defined by their decision to break free from the constraints of tradition and pursue a life of their own making. Whether that was a noble pursuit or an act of self-interest depended on who you asked. But one thing was certain: Harry and Meghan's place in history had been irrevocably altered, and the impact of their decision to leave the royal family would echo for generations to come. The decision to strip his own son of his royal blood status was one of the most difficult and consequential choices that King Charles III had ever made. To outsiders, it may have seemed like a simple matter of upholding tradition and protecting the monarchy's reputation. After all, Prince Harry's actions over the past few years had been nothing short of scandalous, from his decision to step away from royal duties to his public criticisms of the royal family. Yet, for King Charles, this decision was far more personal. It was a moment of immense emotional turmoil, one that would shape not only his reign but also the future of the royal family. As the new king, Charles had inherited a monarchy on the brink of change. His mother, Queen Elizabeth II, had ruled for more than 70 years, and the weight of that legacy hung heavily over Charles. The monarchy, for all its pomp and circumstance, was fragile. The world had changed dramatically since Elizabeth's ascension to the throne in 1952, and the institution she had upheld was now under increasing scrutiny. In the age of social media, the 24-hour news cycle, and constant public scrutiny, the royal family could no longer rely on tradition alone to maintain its relevance. The monarchy needed to evolve, but it also needed to retain its dignity, its integrity, and its bond with the British people. In the midst of these challenges, King Charles found himself confronted with a painful dilemma. His relationship with his son, Prince Harry, had long been strained, but the events leading up to the Queen's death and the subsequent royal fallout made it clear that their rift had reached an insurmountable point. Charles had always been a man of great emotional depth, and his relationship with his children, especially Harry, had been one of great importance to him. The decision to strip Harry of his royal blood status was not an easy one, and it was a decision that weighed heavily on Charles's heart. For years, Charles had hoped that he could reconcile with his son. As a father, he had always tried to protect Harry from the pressures of royal life, offering him guidance and support when necessary. But as Harry grew older and more independent, their relationship became increasingly strained. The differences between father and son were becoming more apparent. Harry had always been the more rebellious of the two brothers, and his decision to step away from royal duties was the breaking point for Charles. For the first time in his life, the man who had spent decades preparing to take the throne was faced with the harsh reality that his own son had rejected not only his royal duties, but also the monarchy itself. The public nature of Harry's departure, coupled with his outspoken criticisms of the royal family, was a devastating blow to Charles. It was not just the public statements or the media interviews that hurt. It was the fact that Harry had chosen to air their family's private struggles in such a public way. To Charles, this was not only a personal betrayal, but also an attack on the very institution he had spent his life preparing to lead. As the new king, he had to act decisively to protect the monarchy's reputation, even if it meant severing ties with his own flesh and blood. For Charles, the decision was also a reflection of his deeper concerns about the future of the monarchy. The world was changing, and the British royal family could no longer afford to hold on to outdated traditions. The monarchy had to adapt to the modern world while preserving its core values. But how could it do that if its own members refused to respect those values? Harry's actions, particularly his decision to speak out against the monarchy and its practices, were seen by Charles as a direct challenge to the very institution he had spent a lifetime defending. The monarchy was no longer just a family, it was a symbol of Britain's unity, and it needed to remain strong and unbroken. The emotional strain of this decision was evident in Charles's private life. In the weeks leading up to the announcement, there were reports that Charles had struggled with the decision to strip Harry of his royal titles. Friends and confidants noted that the king had been deeply torn, as he had always loved his son and hoped that one day they could reconcile. However, Charles was also a man who understood duty and responsibility, and he knew that his role as king required him to make difficult choices. As the weight of the monarchy rested on his shoulders, Charles had to put the institution above his personal feelings, a decision that would have far-reaching consequences for his relationship with his son and the royal family as a whole. At the heart of this decision was Charles's desire to protect the future of the monarchy. As the first monarch of the new era, Charles understood that he was facing unprecedented challenges. The British public was no longer as enamored with the royal family as they once were, and the monarchy had to work harder than ever to maintain its relevance. Harry's actions, while deeply painful on a personal level, threatened to undermine the monarchy's stability and its connection to the people. In the eyes of Charles, the monarchy could not afford to allow a member of the royal family to operate outside its traditions and values. The decision to strip Harry of his royal blood status was not a punishment, but a necessary step to ensure the survival of the institution. But even as Charles made this decision, he was acutely aware of the personal toll it would take on him. The relationship between father and son had been strained for years, but now it seemed irreparable. The pain of losing Harry, both as a son and as a member of the royal family, was a heavy burden for Charles to bear. The decision was a stark reminder that leadership often requires sacrifices. Sacrifices that are not just political but deeply personal. In this moment, Charles had to reconcile the role of father with that of king, and it was a reconciliation that came at a high emotional cost. Charles had always been a man of deep reflection and personal struggle. His ascension to the throne, after decades of waiting, was a culmination of his lifelong commitment to the monarchy. Yet, as he took on the mantle of king, he found himself at a crossroads. The weight of history, the expectations of the public, and the personal conflicts within his family had created a perfect storm that no one could have predicted. As king, Charles was forced to navigate the complexities of family, duty, and legacy, all while maintaining the stability of an institution that had been built on centuries of tradition. In the aftermath of his decision, Charles faced a monarchy that was forever altered. The rift between Harry and the rest of the royal family seemed irreparable, and the consequences of that rift would be felt for generations. As Charles moved forward in his reign, he knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The monarchy had survived countless challenges in the past, but this was a new era, one in which the monarchy had to adapt to the changing world around it. The British monarchy, for all its history and grandeur, stands at a crossroads. The events of the past few years, particularly the rift within the royal family and King Charles's decision to strip his son, Prince Harry, of his royal blood status, have brought the institution to a point where its future is uncertain. The monarchy, once seen as a symbol of stability, tradition, and continuity, now faces questions that it has never had to answer before. Will the monarchy adapt to the modern world, or will it continue to hold on to its centuries-old traditions, even if those traditions are increasingly out of touch with the reality of contemporary society? And, most crucially, what does this all mean for the future of the royal family itself? For King Charles III, the events of the past few years have been a sobering reminder of the immense responsibility that comes with the throne. As the first monarch of the new millennium, Charles has inherited a monarchy that is facing unprecedented challenges. The world has changed, and the role of the royal family within it is no longer as clear-cut as it once was. The British public, once enamored with the royal family, has become more critical and skeptical of its role. The media, once a powerful ally of the monarchy, has become both an asset and a liability. And the family itself, long seen as a symbol of unity and strength, is now divided by personal conflicts and public betrayals. The decision to strip Harry of his royal blood status, while seen by some as a necessary step to preserve the monarchy's integrity, is also a reflection of the deep divides within the royal family. The relationship between father and son, once one of the closest in the family, has now been shattered. This rift, while personal in nature, also reflects a broader shift within the monarchy itself. The monarchy, which has long been defined by its sense of unity and tradition, now finds itself struggling to maintain relevance in a world that is increasingly focused on individual rights, transparency, and equality. The future of the monarchy depends, in part, on how King Charles navigates these challenges. As king, he must balance the needs of the monarchy with the demands of a rapidly changing world. The monarchy, as an institution, must evolve to remain relevant, but it cannot afford to lose sight of the traditions and values that have defined it for centuries. Charles must find a way to move the monarchy forward while ensuring that it retains its core values, duty, service, and loyalty to the nation. One of the biggest challenges facing the monarchy is the issue of succession. With King Charles now on the throne, the line of succession is once again a topic of intense public interest. Charles's son, Prince William, is the heir to the throne, and much attention has already been focused on how he will approach the role. Will he continue his father's legacy, or will he seek to chart his own path? William, who has long been seen as the future of the monarchy, must now step into a role that is fraught with both promise and peril. As heir to the throne, William will be expected to carry the weight of the monarchy's legacy while also adapting it to the modern age. For William, this is a daunting task. The monarchy, as an institution, is built on a foundation of tradition, but the world in which it exists is changing rapidly. The rise of social media, the decline of traditional media, and the growing demands for transparency have made it more difficult for the royal family to maintain the carefully controlled image it has held for centuries. The public is no longer content with the idea of a distant, untouchable monarchy. They want a royal family that is more connected to the people, more relatable, and more accountable. The royal family must also contend with the growing call for equality and social justice. In an age where diversity and inclusion are increasingly valued, the monarchy has come under scrutiny for its lack of diversity, both within the family and among its supporters. The issues of race and class have long been sensitive topics for the royal family, and with Harry and Meghan's departure, the royal family has been forced to confront its own shortcomings in these areas. The public perception of the monarchy has shifted, and it is no longer enough for the royal family to simply uphold tradition. They must also be seen to be in touch with the values of the modern world. This is where King Charles faces his greatest challenge.